on the show today. I'm very happy to have my mate, Jambo Truong on the show, who we've been trying to put this together for like 2 years.
Yeah.
But with his schedule and my schedule, we had a couple of mishaps, but very, very happy to have him here. Yoga teacher, body worker, wise, fun, lovely human being. Jambo, welcome.
Thank you, my friend. It's been great. It's been great to navigate the last 2 years to try and work out this.
Often it was sort of Instagram friends mostly. I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago we met at a yoga festival. And I was like, oh, who's that guy? And he was doing classes and seemed to be saying intelligent things. And that's sometimes rare in the yoga world. And I just like your vibes. So I kind of was like befriending you since then. So Jambo, where are you? In Norwich today, right?
I'm in Norwich. Yes, I'm in Norwich in lovely, quiet, chilled, relaxed.
Is that where you live now? Because you've been around the world, exotic traveling yoga teacher. Everyone else has gone to Bali and Portugal and Thailand, but you thought, no, fuck it, Norwich.
No, fuck it.
Norwich in October. That's what I need in my life.
Yeah, that's what I need in my life. Well, so basically, I during the pandemic, in the first year, I went to Indonesia, stayed there for about 9-10 months, then had to come back to the UK. So went up to Newcastle, where I've got family, and stayed there for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And as soon as everything opened back up, and I was like, fuck it, I need to get the hell out of here fast.
So that you're part Indonesian, is that right?
No. So my boyfriend's Indonesian. My mum is Vietnamese. My dad is Chinese. I was born in Wales, mate.
Wales, that's it. The accent. I was hearing the accent, thinking it's not Geordie, it's something else. It's Welsh. Okay.
I'm Welsh.
All right, let's hear a bit about the journey, Jambo. So how did you get interested in yoga and the body and you're like boys of yoga and all that? Let's take us through the journey. Like, how did it start? How did you get started? Where are you now?
Ooh,
it's a lot.
Sorry, but that's not unusual of you to ask me like really big questions. Okay, so in a nutshell, I've never really done anything else in my life. When I was growing up in Wales, it was all about Taoism, Buddhism, that side of yoga. So there was a lot of like Chinese medicine and that type of movement philosophy at home. So when I went to uni, I was like, well, fuck it, I need to go do something else. So then I went down the Hindu route at uni.
Okay.
And the degree that I was on meant that each module that you studied, each module was a therapy, a complementary therapy. As soon as you completed a module, you could get the insurance to practice in it. So by the time I'd finished my first year, I had a practice, the first year is massage. So it was a massage business. And then in the second year, I thought, okay, I'm not going to do Chinese medicine. I want to do Ayaveda because it's not at home. Took a massive dive into that. Loved it. Took me to India, got me down the yoga asana route, all that kind of stuff, until I realized how messy Ayurveda is. And what I mean by
messy, what do you mean messy? Because I don't know much about Ayurveda.
It involves a lot of oil.
Okay, like literally messy.
That's literally messy. So, in one hand, I'm holding a case full of different types of oils, and the other one, I'm holding a mop and freaking bucket. You know what I mean? And I'm spending just as much time cleaning up the room as I am doing.
I thought you meant metaphorically, but like literally. Okay.
Literally. Like sometimes it was 2 liters of oil per person, depending on what we were doing. So I thought, all right, I need to go do something else. And if you've never had it, it's called Shirodhara, where they drip warm oil on the forehead.
Is that nice? Is that
very soothing?
Very soothing.
Yeah. And then, ideally, you have a full body massage first.
Yeah.
About an hour. Then you have this warm oil soothing over your forehead, kind of making these like figure of 8 shapes.
Are you sure this wasn't in Brighton, Jambo?
No.
It sounded a bit dodgy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it sounds a bit dodgy.
All right. That sounds nice. I literally just came from acupuncture, so I know that's another area you're interested in.
Yeah. Right. So basically, when I was working with all this stuff, I was working with addicts at the time, and Shirodhara was very good for addiction. So that I came back from India, with all my bells on, excited about doing that. So that helped people, because it takes them into imagine that meditative state where you're about to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Sometimes people fall asleep, but they because this oil is moving, you're kind of like lingering in that state for quite a while. So beneficial for that group, right? And then I thought, okay, I can't do this. I need to look at something else. And at the time, acupuncture for addiction was hot on the press. So I went into that and actually became a specialist in cocaine addiction.
Hey, with the coke, does it work?
It's actually very effective. I enjoy using acupuncture for two reasons. One is to manage the side effects of either the Western medication or the side effects of coming off drugs.
Right.
So that people can just be kind of like clear-headed enough to have a session with their therapist.
Yeah, yeah.
Or my other thing that I like doing was to stop cravings.
Okay.
And so the cocaine, the prescription for cocaine addiction was effective. We saw it happening, most effective in some sort of women's charity, and I can't remember the name of it, in South America, where if they were offered daily acupuncture, then they would actually just not use.
Yeah.
So I dived down that route and was like, right, okay, now I'm an acupuncturist.
Okay. New identity.
Yeah. And then I finished uni and I'm like, right, I hate going to the gym. I'll talk about body dysmorphia later at some point, but my body was not gym friendly, not naturally anyway. So I thought, right, I better do something. Somebody hands me a power yoga DVD. It was like a watered down version of Ashtanga yoga. Oh my God. The first thing you do is sun salutations. I remember my first downward dog, I wanted to fucking cry. It was hell. But after about a week, I noticed, oh, I feel really good. And it wasn't, I mean, not a very spiritual story, but basically I broke up with this guy and he came over like 2 weeks later to go pick up his stuff. And I just started doing this yoga every day now because it was like helping me get through the grief. And when I opened the door to him and he looked at me up and down with his jaw on the floor, I knew
you were glowing. That's what yoga's really for. It's about making our exes regret breaking up with us. Yeah. It's so gorgeous. Clearly, Jambo, that's where it's at. That's where it's at from now on. Okay. So you thought, okay, this is having an impact on me. So you dived into the yoga world.
Yeah, that's right.
And you were coming at like different vibe, both with the sort of, Asian medicine traditions, but also just kind of like attitude, because yoga at that point was a little bit different. And then you and like a bunch of sort of guys crashed onto the scene, right?
Yeah.
And you were kind of marketed as it was like boys of yoga or something like that. It's sort of these muscly, young, good looking, those on the podcast are missing out. I am going to flirt with Jambo the entire time. Good looking chap. And back in the day, you and all those lovely boys looking gorgeous kind of thing. That was kind of, oh my God, check this out.
Whoa, you first found a needle.
The acupuncturist left the needle in me. Oh, and I've just found it in my jumper.
That's nuts.
That is really bad. I was thinking, what's that feeling in my chest? We're talking about acupuncture. There's literally a needle stuck in my chest. That was in my heart. I managed to walk home with it, still stuck in me, Mr. Body Awareness. And well, okay, I'm glad that's out now. Didn't cause any damage. I might bring her up on that. They really shouldn't leave needles in, should they?
No.
When you go home.
No.
Anyway, so tell us about this yoga scene that developed in London, and it was all right. What happened?
Okay, so I was already on the yoga scene before this point, and then Michael Wong put together the Boys of Yoga. Okay. And so we met up, and he was like, look, what we need to do is to get more boys into yoga. And I thought, with my background in the prison services, I was like, yes, this is what I want to do,
Yeah.
And so I didn't expect it to be the way that it was, because, like you said, they're like muscly, they're very well dressed,
they're stylists, well, good photography. And before that was normal, right? So now every yoga Instagrammer has a personal photographer, normally a long-suffering boyfriend, right? But it was sort of cool and trendy before it was a thing. And beautiful boys, and it looked different from the stereotype of hippies and skinny girls, didn't it?
That's right. So it was it was a great movement to bring more awareness to, I think, guys at a certain age bracket to come on, come and do some yoga. So I think that's what that was about. And all of the lads, they all have their own different thing. And they've been just spreading the message of, come on, lads, more lads do yoga. You don't see me do so much stuff on that, because the lads that I've been dealing with outside of a yoga studio or yoga festival scenario are people in the street. I mean, I was working with, you'll know this. This is one of the reasons why I really, really get on with you. But like a couple of weeks ago, I was working in oh gosh, refugee charity, just a one-day event in Manchester. They heard I was there. They were like, we want to come down. And of course, you can't shout out about this stuff because refugees don't want to be seen. They don't want photos taken.
Yeah, there's not necessarily a photo opportunity in a lot of these things. Yeah.
Hell no, but the work is deeply fulfilling. So that's the group of guys that I'm linked to when it comes to come to yoga, where I think the other boys of yoga have managed to reach different types of scenes, maybe surfers and people,
because it is in different scenes now. I was in Portugal, the surf scene has its kind of yoga stuff in Portugal, and then obviously it's a sort of London urban yoga thing, which I didn't know existed, just sort of quietly doing my thing in Brighton. And then I took a few trips out to London. I went to Carl's place, Stretch, and
I love that man.
Yeah, nice guy. I like him a lot. That's Carl at Stretch.
Yeah,
who runs.
He's in Ibiza now, isn't he?
They're in Ibiza now. They've not got a studio in London anymore.
They do. They still have a studio in London, as far as I've seen, but they've just built themselves another palace in Ibiza.
I'm sure it's nice. And the London yoga seems very different than other places I've done yoga. Sort of a lot of muscly people, gymnastic, quite competitive.
Yeah.
Sort of hipster kind of vibe sometimes. I was like, okay. Where did that evolve to then? So where are you? Let's bring us up to date. Where are you at now? Like COVID hits. Like, what are your main things now? You do teacher trainings.
Okay, so pandemic hit, and so I've been traveling around for a number of years before that hit. So when pandemic hit, I thought, right, now's the chance to do all the shit that I wanted to do that I couldn't do because I was running around. So I took a deep dive into more diagnostic stuff because that's my favorite thing. And so I dived into more Chinese medicine diagnostics, and one of them was in face reading. And you might like this. I came across a particular teacher called Lillian Bridges, who unfortunately for all the rest of humanity passed away last year. Was it last year or maybe the beginning of this year? God, the years are just moving.
Everyone's confused about what fucking year it is. Everyone's like, was that a year ago? It's 5 years ago.
Yeah. But she had a very interesting slant on the diagnostics of face reading, because she would look at the principles of the 5-element theory through the face. But her thing as a psychologist was always to drive home what was great about the person.
Okay.
So I felt as though I spent 2 years training to look at the face and to see what's great about a person over and over and over.
Hear me, Jambo. Hear me.
Hey, yeah, okay, all right, okay. So you're right. So a couple of really incredible, distinct things about you is that you have so we have 3 zones of the face, right? The forehead, the middle of the face, and the chin. And so up here is intellect, here represents practicality, and here represents human desire, right? And so you've got a good proportion of all 3, but your intellect and practicality are huge, which means that you have a shit ton of that in your life. And then you have like these amazing thick eyebrows, which means a lot of stamina, which
you'll never know, mate. It's sad for both of us.
I can take a wild guess when I watch the things that you get up to. You were talking about our schedules earlier. I look at yours and I think, whoa, this dude has got some stamina.
Thanks for the face read. No, I'm slowing down now, though. I'm slowing down. What about you? I mean, I've often see you kind of traveling, teaching, Forrest Yoga has been another big influence on you, right?
Forrest
you still
Yoga.
Teach that and it's sort of Anna Forrest type form, or?
Yeah. Well, I teach it in my own form. And with all due respect to Anna Forrest, she created an incredible system. And she kicked a lot of yogis' butts into
It's quite hardcore. Hardcore.
Very hardcore and very somatic based. It's very much about what are you working on? How do you make this pose work for you? So when I came to your class one time, it totally resonated. Like, a yoga pose. I mean, here's something that I wanted to talk with you about a little while ago, was this idea around alignment. Someone sent me a message the other day saying, can you recommend any books on alignment? And my response was, if there are, there shouldn't be any.
Yeah, imagine trying to learn that from a book. Yeah, like the straight lines that Iyengar drew on a yoga book. Yeah. Iyengar drawing a photograph, this platonic ideal, there should be these straight lines through the human body.
Yeah. So her style of yoga freed me up then to do things in a way that I've had 2 operations to one of my hips so that my leg could be where I needed to be in Warrior 1 and Warrior 2, you know, not where a book tells me my foot needs to be, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So that liberated that. And also there's a lot of intent work. Each class has an intent, and she's very, the way that she designs intents is very practical and very doable. So choose a spot that embodies either a physical injury or something emotional you want to work with or something that you want to improve on. And where does that live inside of you? Okay, and now do your yoga practice with that area in Embodied. So that's why I really love that. But back in the day, this is just my personal opinion, okay? Personal opinion that maybe 40 years ago when it was developed, people were lazier then.
Uh-huh.
You know, and I think these days people aren't as lazy.
Yeah, people are used to pushing themselves, male and female, I think.
That's
and like it was interesting. I was doing old school hatha yoga mate of mine, Buddhist mate, really nice guy. I took him to the gym the other day because we were having a sauna together. I said, look, we just do the gym first. I was like, I don't normally do the gym. I said, come on, hippie. So I dragged him in. And he was the opposite of most people. We were doing lateral raises, so real simple, you know, dumbbells to the side, you know, a few kilos. And he did about 6. And I was like, you can do double that.
Yeah.
And he was about to quit. And I was like, no, come on, 6 more. And he got to 12 or 15 or something. And he did but that's unusual to not, he's quite a yin guy, very chill, yoga teacher, Buddhist. I think most people these days are pushing their edge a lot.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I didn't even know there was an alternative to going to failure in the gym until someone said, you know, you don't have to go the maximum every single set. I was like, what? Why would you do anything else?
Yeah.
So, like that's me. But I think it's also sort of culture, isn't it? So
yeah.
It's a lot that way.
What the world has been driven in I don't know, the last few decades is to push, achieve, get bigger, get stronger, get more powerful, get more seen, get more clients, get more business, get more. Yeah, until we all fucking burn out, basically.
That's what I've run that one through, really, to look, you know, with the conference and everything else. It's going, how big can we make this? And at a certain point, just going, hang on, why am I doing this? And like, bigger isn't better, you know, like what am I doing?
Right,
I mean,
right.
Did you go through that with the sort of body stuff? I mean, like, I know body dysmorphia is of interest to you. Like, got to be beautiful. There's a lot of pressure on yoga teacher. I'm glad I'm not a yoga teacher. You know, I don't primarily identify as a squirrel yoga teacher. But it's like those who do, there's a lot of pressure on them to look a certain way, right?
Totally. I remember a few years ago. Now, I've had body dysmorphia. I was a big kid because love was food. And if I ate, I was rewarded all the good boy gestures and all that stuff. So I ate my way into love as a child. And then when I got to my teens and I was like, hey, what is all this stuff that everyone is taking? I was taking it as well. And then noticed that, hey, the more drugs you take and the more dancing you do, the faster this weight falls off of you.
Okay.
And what I have is, I mean, it's not, I mean, I'm public about it, but I have a significant amount of visible loose skin.
Okay. From being bigger and then that way.
Yeah, exactly. So when you look at my belly, you know, like if you didn't see the rest of me, you'd think I'd had babies.
Okay.
I'm, you know, every day is about learning how to love it for me, you know, and I'm glad that I had it because it has taught me to embody self-love and enoughness and all that kind of stuff. But I don't have that body. So I'm just not as, you know, I feel as though on social media, I'm just not as popular. And I remember a few years ago, I was staying in an Airbnb and I remember taking a photo just next to this washing machine. I was doing half moon. And in one photo, I had a shirt on. And in another photo, I had a shirt off, but I angled myself so you couldn't really see my belly. And of course, the photo with the shirt off gets more likes.
Right.
And like, it's the same fucking pose. But that's the world that we live in right now. I can't really complain about, you know, what that sex sells. It just sells.
Do you think that as teachers, and I've seen this in the embodiment world from particularly so there's a whole load of really beautiful, like you sort of 20s, early 30s, young female embodiment teachers who have been trained in like female sensuality and they're sort of gyrating with their ass out and their cleavage out. And it's like hashtag embodiment, you know, and if you said to them, hey, you're using sex to sell, they'd say, no, I'm just not ashamed of my body. And who are you to body shame me? And I thought the embodiment was about, but it's like, no, you're showing your ass for likes because it translates into dollars.
Right.
Like, do you think we have a responsibility to not do that? Or do you think we just go, you know what? If you've got it, flaunt it. We're all in this kind of weird capitalist system. We all need to sell our courses.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, what's your take on it?
Super glad that we're talking about this because, you know, in our world of embodiment, there's a lot of do what feels right. You know, and I have a bit of a problem with that because
you work with addicts. You sometimes.
Yeah, well, what feels right now is I have a line. Okay,
I'll have some smack, please. That'd be great.
yeah. Or I'll just dive into the next available toxic relationship or something. You know, because
that's repeating a drum pattern. So of course it feels right.
Exactly. And so I think as long as these people who are doing this stuff are doing it as part of something or with awareness and not as a trauma response, that's okay. Because I know what, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll give you an example. I know what it's like when the little fat Jambo inside, the overweight Jambo inside, wants to do a handstand in the middle of the room with no walls because then he feels really, really good.
Right. It's reinforced. It's like, yay, get me some self-esteem. I didn't think.
Right. Versus me going into the middle of the room and doing a handstand because I refuse to embrace him.
But because you refuse to embrace
the inner open.
Okay.
He never existed. He's under the carpet. Nobody can see him. I never want him to exist. It's two different approaches to going to do a handstand in the middle.
Right. Totally different motivation.
Right. So I think that, you know, it's important that people use whatever it is that they want to use. But, you know, I think often you look at this thing and you can tell when people are doing it as a trauma response or out of sheer creativity.
Right. And it's like, hey, you happen to be in a hot place. Of course you're not wearing many clothes. And is there a titillation deliberately? And kind of the yoga world has this thing of like no judgment. So and because no one can define yoga, who are you to say that's not yoga? Well, you're molesting a cat on top of a skyscraper while ironing. I just don't really think that's, you know, do you see what I mean? Like, it's like, because of that, it's very difficult to critique anyone. Now there's this weird, like, extra feminist layer of defense if it's women who are doing it. Right. Like, this is my feminist empowerment. I'm like, is it really? Is it? Or are you just cashing in on the luck of being a 25-year-old woman? Or gonna get cancelled for that. If you're out there writing your angry letter of complaint, address it to Jambo. He doesn't give a fuck and neither do I.com. All right.
If anyone out there is listening, I'm all good with you doing, and I absolutely fucking celebrate everything that you're doing. But if you're doing it from a place of trauma response, you're not really doing it. You're just doing it because you're angry or upset or you know, that's all that I'm saying here. And that can be anyone. That can be like a queer man that's doing something because of a reactive response. So, you know, as long as it's different, you know, like when you've integrated something and you go off and do it, the way that it's translated, the way that it comes across, and the way it's taken in is completely different.
So what's exciting you about what you're up to at the moment? What's your sort of top thing at the moment, thing that you're really enjoying?
I love teaching bodywork.
What do you call it? What do you say, bodywork? Is there a particular kind of modality or?
Well, originally we called it yoga bodyworkers because we were teaching yoga people how to do bodywork on yoga people.
Okay, got it. That's very niche. I like it. Yeah.
So that went on about 8 years ago. We started that, and that was really good because we could cover the types of injuries that you would typically see in a yoga room.
Quite a lot is the answer usually to that, isn't there?
Yeah. So actually, you know, it was great. As long as people are doing shit yoga, I'm in business.
You're in business. I mean, people are shocked, but there was a sort of study that came out a while back, wasn't there, and sort of surprised people how many injuries there were in the yoga world and how many sort of these big name yoga teachers are quietly having hip replacements and, you know, various things. It's sort of been under the surface of yoga that there's quite a lot, because yoga sort of sells itself as, you know, we don't get injured. People do sports that get injured, but in yoga, you'll always be safe. Yoga is the safe way to exercise. It's kind of marketed, but it's just not true. And
not true.
Particularly the repetition stuff, right? I mean, like, if I go to the gym, I can do all kinds of different exercises. And if I'd say I'm doing triceps, there's 10 exercises I can choose from. I'm not doing chaturanga every morning 100 times.
That's right.
Right? Like that kind of Ashtanga attitude. If you do the same thing in the same linear path every single day, of course that's going to lead to trouble.
Yeah. And I teach anatomy on a number of teacher trainings, and I upset people often when I say, look, your way isn't the way. You know, there's no one way that's going to be the whole way. And if there's one rule about the human body is that if you constantly repeat anything, you're going to develop a compensation pattern. I don't care how good it is for you. You're going to
What's a compensation pattern? Tell the listeners what that is. So if you do, I don't know, you chaturanga, it's like basically, you know, spiritual push-up every day. What's the compensation? What does that mean?
Okay, so then you get really good at pushing and terrible at pulling.
Right, so there's not much pulling in yoga generally, right?
Right, exactly. People love a chaturanga, a crow, and a handstand.
Yeah, yeah, right? And where's the pull-ups kind of thing, you know? And that's like a whole day you've missed if you're doing upper body in the gym. You do push day and day.
Exactly. And I say to people, look, if you want to build a yoga studio for me, put pull-up bars all over the ceiling.
Right. So you can do the hanging, the opening up the shoulders that way.
Yes. And
grip
also
strength.
Right, grip strength and climbing is more likely to save your life than a handstand.
Climbing is maybe quite a nice balance to yoga, isn't it? Like
very good balance.
See the sort of two of the trendier things in big cities these days: climbing walls and yoga studios. So
great combination.
What else do people need to know about like injuries and anatomy? You know, as a body worker that's had his hands on a lot of, you know, busted up yogis, what might be useful for people to know?
Okay, so most of the time we hold a lot of tension in our neck and jaw. Okay. Mainly because the way that we live life now, we're sitting. So, you know, the glutes are offline, the legs are offline, the core is offline. And if you get stress, the body has to hold it somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Well, so what have we got left? Shoulders, neck, and jaw. Right. And now we live in an age where it increasingly becomes about what you're allowed to talk about and what you're not allowed to talk about.
Do you think that's creating more jaw tension? That there's about 10 topics we're not allowed to touch on. Now we're hitting record.
Exactly.
People say that to me now on the podcast. They didn't 4 years ago when I started. They say, before I hit record, they go, look, can we not touch on this, this, and this? Or you're not going to ask me about that, are you? And you're not going to say da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, all right, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, and I always respect their wishes, but that's new. That didn't happen on the podcast 4 years ago. People felt a lot freer. Yeah. Right. Do you think that translates as a jaw tension then? Like
totally.
What you can't say.
So you can't say stuff. And then what happens is then, because we get used to using our jaw to hold ourselves so that we're able to come across the way that we want to come across, that translates into the way that we live life. And so, you know, you'll be doing yoga poses. You might hear a yoga teacher say, relax your jaw, because you're doing like an abdominal exercise, but your face is twisted because you're
pretty common.
Right. So so then the jaw becomes this major compensator in that it leads other movements. So people are using their jaw to do warrior one, to do a handstand, to do chaturangas and all this kind of stuff. And I've noticed that actually when we in bodywork, we spend a couple of days working on releasing the jaw alone, and a lot of
I need that, Jambo. I teeth grind and I've got a tight jaw. Where do I sign up for that? Come and say, bring your boyfriend. Barry won't mind. Come work on my jaw.
Yeah. No, I'll come to you for sure.
Let me know. So, sorry, I interrupted you. That just sounded so good.
And also the neck, right? So, you know, like for people who don't know, the main muscle of inhalation is the diaphragm, which is in the middle of the torso. It's pretty big. It's round, kind of round in shape. But most people don't use the diaphragm to breathe. Instead, we'll use these tiny muscles in the neck that are tiny, and they're secondary muscles of inhalation. So actually, a lot of the problems reoccurring problems that people have in their neck and shoulders is because of poor breathing.
Okay.
Right. And then, so in Forrest Yoga, there's an encouragement to relax the neck in poses.
Yeah, it's a very particular kind of thing, that almost an affectation for some Forrest people, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
The head tilting and it's
they're a little obsessed.
Yeah, like,
and I would say sometimes when I teach them anatomy, I say there's relaxing the neck, then there's overstretching the neck. You know, like that's not what we're asking you to do here. We're asking you to relax it so that your legs are holding you up in triangle and not your neck.
Got it.
So if we're not breathing regularly, optimizing the diaphragm, then we have a likelihood of overusing these tiny muscles as compensations for breathing.
Nice.
That turns into reoccurring neck and shoulder injuries.
So that's what you're mostly teaching now then. So the body work, working with yoga people still, looking at the anatomical side. Are you still bringing in some of the Oriental medicine side?
Yes.
Is that still a term we can use? Oriental medicine?
No.
Is that? No. Okay, just got cancelled.
Just got cancelled.
Jambo, you need to inform me, man. Let me know what's the term that's used. Because I was trying to say, what's the term for Chinese plus Indian combined?
Yeah, no, we're not allowed to say Oriental anymore.
Not allowed. No, okay, well, I've been informed. I'll take your word for it. What's the term then? What's the term?
Okay, so there's a couple of different ones. You either have East Asian medicine.
Okay.
Classical East Asian medicine is kind of the old forms of Chinese medicine. Yeah. And now you have something known as traditional Chinese medicine, which is more of the university created academic style of doing Chinese medicine. So I'll leave that where it is because I don't want to get cancelled.
We're going to have the Chinese medicine people. I'll go tell a little Chinese lady down the road that I just saw that she should change her sign. Okay. What can you say? Great. So yes, do you bring that kind of stuff in still? Is that part of kind of what you do?
Absolutely. And right now I'm very interested in how meridians that run through muscles and what kind of emotions might be embodied in certain types of tissue. So, and I don't like to have a rule book of A to Z, like
this means this.
Yeah. But like I like to say, generally speaking, a lot of people store a lot of frustration in the neck, but it's generally. So I'm like,
themes,
more so than exact, and then I give this reason of, well, we sit like that and we clench our jaws and we don't breathe properly. And and we're dealing with all of this whilst we're in meetings or answering emails or looking at social media or listening to somebody say something that we get extremely triggered by and we can't say what we really want to say because you'll either get sacked or cancelled.
Seems to be the theme. I think I'm going to call this "What You Can't Say About Yoga."
Yeah.
Episode. It's there's definitely some truth in this, what we hold in the body though. So occasionally I see a meme going around social media and it'll be like, this means this. But I sort of often see it as like things to be curious about. Like I had some stomach issues lately and I'm kind of going, okay, what am I not digesting here?
That's right.
There's an inquiry that starts from that.
And it's important to have the inquiry. It's more empowering to have the inquiry rather than go, some person said this and that's it. And if we continue like that, then we stay in the same rut that we've been in for centuries.
Yeah. So bringing that into yoga is nice though, because like, where's the yoga scene at today? I'm a bit removed from it, really. So I go to a class in Brighton a couple of times a week, but I'm a bit removed from the scene. What's the post-COVID yoga scene like?
Gosh, okay. Well, I feel that during COVID, people had enough time to work out what they wanted in terms of physical movement, yoga, and all that stuff. And then, of course, when the pandemic hit, everybody went online, so you could do a yoga class with somebody
anywhere in the world, right?
Anywhere in the world that you always wanted to meet, but you couldn't fly to Tokyo for whatever reason.
Did people though? Because a lot of people I know just did yoga with the local teachers online.
Some did that.
Some explored,
Some did that, and I think some other people explored. And of course, people have moved away from the center.
Yeah.
So what I've noticed is that studios in the center.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that. I don't want to describe them as struggling, but I do want to describe that they've experienced a hit of some sort.
I've heard that in-person yoga as well as all embodied practice is really still down.
Yes.
It seems like people are doing less generally now. It's like there was a Zoom rush, and then it strikes me also that there's going to be a distribution issue here, that people that could have gone to the local yoga guy, John Smith or Jane Smith from Brighton, town centre, they can now go and try, I don't know, with Leslie Kaminoff's class, who's zooming out of New York, or their famous West Coast Ashtangi, or you know what I mean. So I think there's going to be a lot of yoga that's a certain percentage has gone to the big names, as it were, because they're famous and they're Instagram people. But then it just seems like people are doing less generally.
I feel so,
but less online and less in person.
Yes, I agree. And the requests that I have of what to teach and what to do in one-to-ones are all therapeutic.
Do you think people are tired? I mean, obviously, there's economic conditions have changed, but it seems like, I'm not sure if I'm just projecting this because I'm a bit burnt out, but seems to me like people are tired and don't want to run around. Like my schedule's less full than it was. You know what I mean? I used to have classes, bam, 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 all over the place. And now I'm just like, I do a couple of yoga classes a week, one dance class, meditate in the mornings. You know, it's kind of a bit more chill. I'm wondering if that's a trend.
I feel so. I definitely sense that there. I definitely see a lot of that amongst my peers, but I still do see the 20-year-olds who have just started out in this life, still wanting to do the Bali, Thailand experience.
Okay, to get that tropical
Yeah,
paradises over there,
yeah.
spiritual.
So we're essentially catering for a completely different audience now.
Uh-huh.
And it's like a young crowd that really wants to have that cool hippie sunshine,
cool pictures on the beach,
right? And my sister's 21 and she came with my cousin who's 28 to a yoga class in Ireland recently. They like to just come by to wherever, but really they're on holiday. I mean, my sister's a yoga teacher, but she doesn't teach yoga. She's a psychologist, and she just they went on holiday. And what's really cute is they have their phones out, right? And I let people, I'm like, if you need, like, if you've got a babysitter at home, or, whatever reasons you need to have your phone there, I don't really care, just have it there, just do it respectfully. But then I see the younger generation will literally stop and ask their mate to take a photo of them
in the middle of things.
In the middle of it. And I think it's cute. I think, oh wow, when I was a kid, like you didn't do yoga like that. You couldn't even have a bottle of fucking water next to your mat,
Yeah. Do you not mind as a teacher? Do you not object that people get their phones like big? No. Do you not think it puts the focus on the appearance rather than the feeling, though? And if the whole point of yoga is the somatic sense.
Of course. And also it depends where we're going, right? Like if it's at a part of the class where we're digging somewhere, absolute no.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But at the end, when we're all warmed up and hot and flexible and you're just playing around with poses, like what we call the apex session, I'm totally down with that.
Yeah. There was a 20-year-old, I think, in a 12-step meeting I was in that I've gone to for years, and she was on her phone texting, and she was sitting there, and I'd spoken to her like in a friendly way a couple of times, she's new in and taken under my wing a little bit, and I'd sort of gone, you might want to put that away. And she just went, why? Yeah. And I was like, because people are sharing about their lives and their addictions, and this is a meeting. Yeah. And she just generally, she was confused why I was asking her to put it away.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to say. I didn't have a go at her or anything right in the middle of the meeting. And I think no one had pointed it out to her, because the average age in meetings is, sort of late 20s plus generally. So I was like, well.
But that's the generation we're dealing with. She gave you a confused look, right?
Yeah. She was like, why would I stop texting?
Exactly. So that's who we're dealing with.
It's like, well, we have to go back to first principles here.
Okay? Yeah.
She, in her mind, it wasn't disrespectful for the person that was, sharing about the deepest pain in their life at that moment. Someone was kind of pouring their heart out. Happens in these minutes. Like, why would I put that away?
It means a lot for somebody to stand up in a 12-step meeting.
No, I just, as far as I'm concerned, anyone who's in there, it's, she's gone through just a walk in the door kind of thing. So,
I just want to clarify though. I just want to clarify that it's not okay to do that in any type of class. Like this class that we had in Ireland was like a fun. It wasn't.
It's appropriate to the moment.
Right. It has to be appropriate. If the intent today is to pick a spot where you need to do some emotional healing, then maybe no, we're not doing that.
And being sensitive to where it may or may not be appropriate, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I'm the same when I have a photographer in the room who's taking pictures of a workshop.
Yeah.
I've really noticed this. Some photographers get it, particularly if they're practitioners.
Yeah.
I'm like, that person's going through a process. They're crying with their friend. Don't take their picture. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just put the camera, or they'll get the camera out at the beginning. And I'm like, no, just let people get used to you first. And a good photographer in this space will know, we're doing a fun exercise, everyone's jumping around, it's not a big deal. Okay, it doesn't matter that people might go a little bit into their performance body at this point.
That's right.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we just have to keep an eye on who's showing up now. And I think the people that we used to be working with, or people more closer or within our age bracket, we just have different priorities now. And I feel that people are more eager to have a balanced approach more so than a pushing approach now.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. I kind of wonder like what the next few years are going to bring for yoga, particularly. And I think post-COVID, there's this sort of space of sort of possibility and opportunity, and how's it going to go? And is it going to kind of go down after this sort of boom that started in the 90s and I thought would fade away, and it actually just sort of continued for sort of 20, 30 years. It wasn't just a flash in the pan, like yoga's fashionable for a couple of years, like rollerblading was for a couple of years or something.
Right. Well, we if we look at the trend and look at how things worked out in America, because that's
usually we
like
follow America, don't we? Sadly, the West Coast. Usually the West Coast.
What is wrong with us?
Why do we copy them? They're crazy. Americans, if you're listening to this, yes, I called you all insane.
Especially West Coast.
Especially the West Coast. They are the most crazy. But it'll be, look, things follow that trend. And I can see why. I was watching an old documentary on bodybuilding, and it was a Gold's Gym. In California, and Schwarzenegger was there, and they're all on the beach working out. It was like the California dream, It's like, and then I was looking out the window today, grey, rainy, Brighton, of people trudging in the October weather through. Is October? Just about September 30th. It's trudging through the street, and I went, I could maybe see why we don't lead trends in quite that way.
Yeah. I went there, Gold's Gym in.
Was it?
So good. There was I mean, everyone's about 5 times the size of me, and like
big boys.
Big boys. We spent a lot of time in the mirror.
Yeah, a lot of flexing.
Yeah,
but that's part of, if they're real bodybuilders, that's also not just vanity. That's also part of their art, right?
Absolutely.
Like they've got to get good at that shit. There's a dance to that. It's not just looking in the mirror saying I look great. I mean, do you think as sort of Europeans, we don't lead the way quite so much? If I think of all the schools of yoga, how many of them came out of Wales or Brighton? Or, Norwich, where you are now? And also, maybe the scene a little bit more. Like, are there styles of yoga coming out of Asia, like Indonesia, Malaysia, there's Vietnam, we've got some heritage. Like I'm wondering if there's other styles created there, or are they like us Europeans, they just follow the Americans? Because I've heard, for example, the Japanese yoga scene follows America again.
Right. I think the Taiwanese yoga scene follows the American one, possibly because of just their chosen political things and way of life and all that kind of stuff. But the rest of Asia is very, very different to the rest of us, actually. They still essentially book Indian gurus over to Asia, and then the Indian teacher leads the yoga practices over there. So, I'm half Vietnamese, right, and half Chinese, and I don't actually have that many gigs in either of those places. Some in China, hardly any in Vietnam, because the Indian yoga gurus own that scene over there. So when you look at
because it just don't like the brand, it looks good. It's like Japanese Aikido teachers. It just kind of looks the part somehow. Or?
I think maybe that, or maybe they wanted to get it just straight from the roots.
Right, and it's a sense it's more authentic somehow.
Right. So all the yoga teachers who are big at that side of the world are Indian.
Interesting. What's it like teaching in China?
China's
There's another thing you can't say. We just entered the territory of like, I don't want to be cancelled by Winnie the Pooh's yoga police. It's we just entered the territory of, he's like, well, I quite like to keep working there, Mark, so I have to be careful what I say. China's like Facebook, but worse.
That's right.
What's it like? What can you say? What's it like?
Okay, all right. Okay, what I love about China is that they can get shit going fast. Now, when someone books me for a workshop, I'm like, I want to give you 9-12 months to go with, plan it and organize it and all that kind of stuff. But China will say, I want you here in 3 months, which is a usual massive NO for me.
Yeah.
But you go over and they pull it together. And then, you walk down the street and you're like, this high rise wasn't here 3 months ago.
Right. There's a dynamism that shit's happened there.
Yeah. So they're really, really good at getting shit going.
And as students, how do you find the choice? For example, I've had very positive experience with Indian and Japanese students, but do they know how to be students? I don't know how the Chinese are generally. I mean, obviously, big place, big generalizations.
I loved what you just said there. They know how to be students.
Yeah.
Okay, They look, I know that in the West, people have their various types of hang-ups, which they need to have around gurus and how gurus, of course.
All authority is bad is the other extreme, though, right?
Right. Yeah. Well,
it's just as extreme as all gurus should be trusted.
That's right. That's right. Well, you know, don't give somebody who didn't have that much money millions of pounds, loads of cars, and worship at their fucking feet, and they probably won't go to their head.
Yeah. What do you think will happen? What do you think is going to happen?
Exactly.
25-year-old Tibetan dude or whatever, and all of a sudden worship them like this. But I find that Europeans, Brits are pretty bad. Americans are the worst. Often Israelis are bad. Don't know how to be students, though, right? Like I remember teaching a couple of nights ago, and someone said, I said, is there any questions? And someone started just teaching. And I actually just muted them because it was on Zoom. And I went, no, I asked for questions.
Yeah, yeah.
You're not asking a question.
I'm so glad you said that, because sometimes when I say, look, any questions, people often share things which feels more like I need you to validate what I know.
Their opinion. And they want to tell you like, hey, I'm clever too. You're not the only clever one here. And I'm like, yeah. Then their opinions might be great, but that's not what everyone came for.
That's not what we came for. And so, you know, respect that space. And I agree with you. I've not taught in Israel or Japan, but what I can say in China, Hong Kong, well, you know, Hong Kong is part of it now, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, you're the teacher. Okay. So I'm going to come and listen to everything, every letter that comes out of your mouth. Well, and I'm going to decide what I do with it. But during the time when we're together,
you're
the teacher, I'm taking up this information, and I will respect you as a teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and then you leave, do what you want when you left. But in the moment, you're right.
Yeah, right. I like that. Like when I'm there, I'm going to be open to what you're saying. I'm going to try it. Yeah. Later on, I can decide if I want to continue it or take it on board or not. And there's some sense, I think it comes from that until very recently in a lot of those countries, not everyone got education.
That's right.
So it's some sense that like education is, I found this when I was in sub-Saharan Africa, you know, education was precious. Mm-hmm. Right? Sometimes you see this with immigrant families in the UK. It's like, you know, they get your ass to school, they're telling their kids, because there's some sense that that's actually a privilege. It's not just, oh, fuck, I have to go to school, which is most British kids.
Yes,
right?
yes. And you see that in us Europeans and Americans, when people show up to classes and they're coming to learn these principles of embodiment and working with triggers and traumas and all that stuff. But then they speak to you as though you owe them, like almost as though, actually, no, here it is.
As customers.
Customers.
Yeah, they think they're consuming. They think they're a consumer at that point.
Yeah. And you're like, well, yeah, okay, I understand where you're coming from, but really here, I'm sharing some info. This is a teaching, you know, and I want to share it as best as I can, as authentically as I can, as in completion as I possibly can within the time that we have to do this. That's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to convince you to like me, to buy into me, or anything like that. I just want you to know that if you get somebody to do this, this likely will happen, because that's just how the human body works.
Yeah, and I've kind of increasingly had students orientate to me as the default being, where's my customer service?
Yeah.
And we have a customer service person. If you buy products of us, and, you know, embodimentunderme.com, all that, you know, you can buy, you can say, hey, you know, this isn't what I want, blah, blah. We have a person for that, but please don't relate to me that way.
Right. And then European, especially us Brits, right, who now are paying into train services that are privatized. So we're paying through the roof to sit on the fucking floor on a train. Because
right, that's definitely silly. Yes.
You know, and then you don't hear them like going on about where's the customer service. I mean, you know, we allow people or organizations like that to essentially steal from us.
Yeah.
And we don't do anything about it. And there's us being a yoga teacher going, I just want to share this. But being obstructed by this demand of customer service. And I'm like, I'm not KLM or you know, or Virgin.
What do you fucking think this is?
You know?
It's a thing. Yep. Yeah. I'm with you. Listen, we need to wrap up relatively soon. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about, that you're passionate about? Anything that you want to chat about now?
I just want more right now. Where my heart is at is I would like more people in the world to be open to receiving the basic form of education so that they know how to become empowered to be safe.
To be safe in the movement practices.
Yes, in all of our practices. Like, you know, when you teach embodiment, I've seen you do it. You know, you show people, like, if you put your foot here and your foot here, and your body, your torso's like this, you're in a position of power. right? And so for me, in anatomy, this is why I loved it. The way that you put your people in poses meant that the intrinsic core was in a stable place. And so you need that stable, like, when you're doing deadlifts or squats, you need that stability. And, I've seen you bring it into yoga, which I love. Now, when we teach people principles like that, this is when the body feels safe, stable, and potentially at its strongest. Then we create these safe frameworks for people to go, okay, as long as I'm working within these parameters, I can discern my feelings and develop the confidence of establishing a safe environment within myself and around me, as opposed to what feels right. That's my main message for the world today.
Okay, Jambo. You know what? I enjoyed this bromance. We'll definitely have you back on at some point. Don't be a stranger. I'll give you a shout if I'm up in East Anglia at some point. Where do people find you in real life on the internet? Where do people go?
Okay, so everyone, I'm only in East Anglia for the weekend, and then I'm going to run. Okay.
That's probably a wise idea. Sorry, Norwich.
Yeah, sorry, Norwich, but I'm going to row. Right after this. People find me Instagram, Jambo Dragon, TikTok, Jambo Dragon, Facebook, Jambo Truong, Truong, or Jambo Dragon, jambodragon.com is my website where everything is in it. And I'll probably very likely will put a link to this podcast up on there too.
Awesome. I'm just making sure I'm following you on the Insta. There you are, Jambo Dragon. Yeah, already following you. Got the post going on. Look at that. More likes than me. Good stuff. All right. Jambo, thank you so much for joining us.
Love you.
Good, mate. Bye.
Bye.
Mark Walsh here. If you like that, you'll probably like embodimentunlimited.com and our app. So on both of these things, you can get a bunch of podcasts that aren't available here, some exclusive ones with some big names, some people you'll probably recognize that are over there. There's a copy of my book, PDF of my first book on embodiment, which seems that people like. I sold quite a few copies on Amazon, but there's a free copy there. What else is there? Loads of videos of me coaching embodiment, resources on trauma, on meditation, on yoga. And you can also chat to people without going on Facebook or any of that nonsense. So if you want to chat embodiment with people, that's there. And it's on the embodimentunlimited.com, all free, and the app available at the App Store and all that good stuff. So if you like this, do check those out.